Considered using emergency powers to grant yourself authorities to build this wall without congressional approval? And second,
yes,
on
I have.
Mexico, you have.
Yes, I have. And I can do it if I want.
X gon' give it to you. Wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you. Knock, knock, open up the door.
Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. We are back. We got a few Q posts to talk about. We got a lot of things to talk about, actually. We have just wrapped up our first week of the Democrats taking over the House, and already it doesn't seem to be working out so well. Yikes, yeah, not so smooth. Maybe if they had just stuck the landing at least, I don't know. Well, listen, it's going pretty well over here. I want to thank every single one of you for helping me reach 80,000 subscribers this past week. I greatly appreciate all of you. All of you, of course, except for CEO of YouTube, Susan Wojcicki. No cake for this woman, ladies and gentlemen. And we celebrate all these little milestones with a big fat cake. And look at this big fat cake right here. It's got chocolate and looks like, I don't know if that's ice cream or what, and cookies. And all the cookies at the bottom are looking up top saying, man, wish I could get up to the top of that cake. But they don't realize at what cost. Because once you get up there, they're all broken up. Ugh. Might want to just stay down there where you're safe, cookies. So grab yourself a piece of cake. Thanks for all you do, and let's get started. Now, I want to start off this video letting you guys know who are watching me on YouTube that I really would love it if you would join me on one of these other channels. YouTube is about to change their policies on the 22nd of this month, meaning that some verified, quote-unquote, accounts will not be searchable. That will likely be my own. Now, I don't know if all my stuff's going to get deleted, erased. I have no idea. Maybe nothing will happen. But if something goes down, thousands of you are going to be asking what happened to your channel. That's why I'm explaining it at the beginning of my video instead of at the end, because you guys don't listen to the end of my videos. I know that because you guys ask me questions that are always answered in the end of the videos. Love you, but you do. All right, so I'm over here on gab.ai/IPOT. I'm over here on BitChute. And I'm on Brighteon.com. To the best of my ability, I am able to upload videos without having to go through YouTube, although it's very difficult to do on Gab. I will likely try to be as active as I can on Gab if it does go down on YouTube. But please understand, like I said, on the 22nd of this month, things are going to change and I likely might not be searchable. And you're going to be asking yourself, Patrick, why can't I find you? And it's because you weren't listening to what I'm telling you right now. So please join me over here on Gab or on BitChute if you can, and you can also watch my videos on Brighteon.com. All these links are down below in the video description, and they're in the video description of every video down below. So please check those out and we can stay connected. Let's move on. All right, let's get you started. Post 2643, 57 minutes after the hour of 11 on January 5th. Q takes us back to post 2510. Let's go ahead and do that right here. That is this. Now, I've taken you down, it's a long post. I've taken you down to the part where we're talking about Mueller, because that's what we're talking about. And Q is implying that Mueller is a blockade and then begins to explain. Mueller designed to take in evidence needed to expose deep state DOJ block regarding Mueller evidence ongoing investigation. Yeah, the fact that he's got an ongoing investigation blocks a lot of things. Things can't get released, things can't get said, things can't get done because there's an ongoing investigation, right? That was the whole point. The major deep state blockade was just to leave Mueller there. They knew they weren't going to find anything. As long as they kept on looking, eventually they would work themselves through midterms. Mueller designed to limit POTUS' ability to maneuver. Yeah, president can't make a lot of decisions, can't make a lot of actions if the president is under investigation, right? And of course, we know better. We know truly that the president isn't actually under investigation. This was just an investigation into the Trump-Russia collusion, but not necessarily Trump itself. It was more about the campaign, right? Mueller designed to stall for time until midterm elections to terminate all House, Senate ongoing investigations. So wait a minute. That means that we have House and Senate ongoing investigations, right? And we knew that, right? We had it at first in the House, and because we knew we were probably going to lose the House, that got transferred over to the Senate, which was why the Senate was the goal, and that's where the ongoing investigations are. But as long as Mueller had some sort of validity, none of that was going to see the light of the day. Mueller designed to safeguard Democratic Party base. False narrative regarding Russia collusion. POTUS cheated. Evil. Sky is falling in effort to divide and mobilize for future protests, riots, threats, violence, false flags, etc. Yeah, as long as there is this quote-unquote investigation going on, it always gives fodder for the Trump haters to use. They can always kind of use that as sort of a tag to their sentence. Well, you know he's under investigation, right? Mueller, designed to provide fake news with ammunition to sway public opinion, obstruct foreign plus domestic agenda, fuel impeachment removal, fuel anti-POTUS division, prevent unity, etc. Exactly what I was just saying, right? Only applying that to the media. And of course, the media is the ones that gives all the Trump haters their ammo. They're the ones that can kind of keep shoving that out there. They were getting it from leakers. So the very, very people who were obstructing all this justice were the same people that were also leaking to the mainstream media and providing them with this false narrative. And that's how it got so much steam. And as long as they can say, well, Mueller is under investigation, the news can use that too. They can kind of use that tagline, right? And they did. They used it to death. Mueller designed to demonstrate to foreign players that old guard still pulls strings. So if you're sitting there and you're a big wig in Australia, the UK, Russia, China, who knows where, just about everywhere around the world, all these deep state knuckleheads are keeping a close watch on what's going on in this investigation. And as long as Mueller was still there investigating, they figured there was still hope, there was still a chance to drum something up. Remember, they weren't really investigating any kind of crimes from President Trump, and that's what's been so problematic here, is that in the United States of America, you do not investigate a person. You investigate crimes that a person may or may not have committed, but you investigate the crime, not the person. In this case, they were all about investigating the person. Mueller designed as a public outcry. Excuse, should criminal charges be brought against them? We are being politically attacked because Mueller. Remember, anybody, just about anybody right now that is kicking around an idea of running against Trump is likely involved in something, because that's precisely what they're going to do. If some sort of charges comes up against them, they can just immediately say that this is a political attack only, and it has nothing to do with any kind of real crimes. Meanwhile, that's exactly what they did to President Trump, right? How do you remove installed blockade? Well, you got to get around it. You got to drop the bacony, cheesy goodness. How do you navigate around installed corrupt FBI, DOJ? Well, you got to drop bombs at some point, right? And like I've been saying, this D-class, or I call it the Whopper with cheese, we've been wanting it, and we get little bits of bacon, a little bits of cheese, but we don't get the whole burger, right? And that's exactly what's going on, because the more little bits leak out, we start to find out who our players really were. How do you navigate around install corrupt FBI, DOJ? Well, you use a stealth bomber. Now, many of us assume that was Jeff Sessions back in the day. Very well could be. Could Whitaker be our stealth bomber? Could Shanahan be our stealth bomber? I suppose it could come in a lot of forms, right? But a stealth bomber comes when you're not looking. You don't see it. Who must authorize firing of FBI, DOJ officials? That's Sessions. Why did McCabe try to take Sessions out? Because he knew that. He knew exactly what Sessions was doing. These guys aren't dummies. They know exactly what Sessions was doing, even though in the outward narrative, everyone was thinking Sessions did nothing. Fact of the matter is that as we cleaned out this FBI and the DOJ, someone had to sign off on all that. And of course, that was our stealth bomber, Sessions. What was the Sessions Senate confirmation vote? 52-47. Not so, wasn't exactly an avalanche, right? Number 175. Now, Q is referring to post 175 on the Patriotsfight board. And we're not going to go through this, but you can look at it if you want. This is just basically talking points that the so-called MAGA pundits have been using, talking about the necessity for a second special counsel. And of course, we know that DC moves at a glacial pace. So we know that a second special counsel isn't going to do it. We've already been 2 years in a special counsel already, and look where it got us, right? Okay. Excuse me. There we go. Logical thinking versus clickbait Q. So let's go back to the post. And at the bottom here, it said regarding Mueller, 55Q. Yeah, so we know that the whole point of bringing Mueller in the first place was to simply block everything up until midterms so that they could try and get the office of the presidency back or impeach the president, whatever ended up turning out, right? Now Q takes us to this Twitter link of Brit Hume. On the record denials, this sweeping and emphatic apparently caused some journalists not to write this story. The McClatchy guys went with it anyway, despite their sources' refusal to be specific about what exactly was being investigated. Well, let's check this out. And here it is right here. This is a series of email correspondences between Cleta Mitchell and a Peter Stone and also a Greg Gordon. Now, Cleta Mitchell used to serve way back in the day in the Oklahoma House of Representatives. Now she's a lawyer with Foley and Lardner LLP. Peter Stone and Greg Gordon work with McClatchy, which is a DC media outlet. And these are a series of email correspondence. We're not going to go through the whole thing here, but I want to read parts from the top here. Communications to Peter Stone on Wednesday, March 14th, 2018. And it says to read from the bottom. This is the first knowledge that I had been included in the Adam Schiff report. Now, just to give you kind of a beat on what's going on here, what they're asking about, here's an email from Peter Stone where he wrote, Cleta, we're working on a follow-up story to our earlier reporting regarding the FBI probe into Russian banker and lifetime NRA member Alexander Torshin and whether he may have funneled funds improperly through the NRA or an allied conduit to influence the elections and help Trump win. I've seen your name on a short list of people that the minority on House Intel wants to talk with, who might shed light on the NRA's relationship with Alexander Torshin. I have also heard from a source I trust that you have expressed concerns to some investigators or people familiar. Now, I want to go back to the bottom here real quick, but I just want to include her response here. Well, that's at least something that they didn't leak it. But if talking to me is something they think is even of interest, it just underscores that they are grasping at straws. They have nothing. There is nothing. Now, let me take you almost all the way to the bottom here because I think she sums this up really well. And there's a whole bunch of frustrations that this Cleta Mitchell is going through here. She's basically telling them that they don't have anything. And these guys kind of keep digging and they kind of keep trying to basically defend their own story. Here we go. She says, you made this one up. I know that. You published a 100% false story. That's what I know. I have had zero involvement with the NRA since my board term expired in 2012. The reason my name surfaces with regard to the NRA is that every time there's a school shooting and the media feeding frenzy that always follows, reporters I know call and ask me things. I usually am willing to talk to them on the record, just providing some context as to the organization. This particular rumor is completely false. I've never thought for 1 second that the NRA to Russian money in 2016 or any other time. If someone told me that, I would require proof, as I do. As I do not believe that. It would be completely out of character. And one thing the NRA is consistent. I have not done legal work for the NRA in more than a decade. Now let's move on to another one here. Well, Greg, your search for the truth didn't come close to finding it. Not even close. The answers to all your questions below. No, 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 no. All no. No! 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 So I think we can deduce that it's a no. And I have never, ever, ever said or even thought of any Russia-NRA connection. First I ever heard about that was when reporters started calling me, asking me if I knew anything about it. And I started laughing. It is preposterous. Your source is a lying sack of you know what. But here's the really laughable statement. And it's quote, of course, it's possible that the congressional Democrats on the Intel committees manufactured this stuff, but that has not been their record over the last 15 months, at least from my experience. Okay, so since they haven't done it in the last 15 months, it's possible they'd never do it at all, huh? That is a bizarre statement. As I said to you earlier, to you and Peter, I now see firsthand the sick relationship between the media and Adam Schiff. You guys believe everything they say because you want to. For liberals, believing is seeing. Facts and truth do not matter to the media or to Adam Schiff. Lies upon lies upon lies. I don't care how many times you ask me. I don't care how you frame the questions. I have not had any relationship with the NRA in 6 years. I had zero contact with NRA in 2016 or for almost the 5 years before that. And anyone who says otherwise is lying. And you took the unnamed source, wrote a false lead paragraph, which led to a 100% false headline and buried the truth down in the story. Very impressive. Cleta Mitchell, Esquire.
So you can run and tell that, homeboy.
So, Cleta is less than impressed. What happens when all insiders know the news is fake? Well, I suppose they start running with that fake story. Or if you're actually a good reporter, you might work against it or start leaking it out to somebody else. But either way, when your story is not steeped in fact, you're going to screw up the story at some point. What happens when all insiders know that AS, being Adam Schiff, is the leak of false data? Well, I suppose if they're on his team, they're going to try and corroborate the story, right? But if it seems like the world might come crashing down around them, then I suppose they know exactly who to sell out. What happens when a member of the House Intel Committee, being Adam Schiff, purposely leaks fake and false data to friendly news sources in order to maintain and portray a false narrative to the public? Well, ladies and gentlemen, at that point, you have treasonous acts and really probably some sedition going on, right? How do you build a case against a member of the House Intel Committee if they themselves have access to the intelligence? Well, that's a little tricky, isn't it? And I would think you would give out a little bit of disinformation. So let's say maybe you give a handful of people your big scoop, but that big scoop is 3 different stories. And then you let that sift out and you see who's leaking those stories and who's talking about those narratives, who are taking those narratives and running with it. And you know who the leakers are because they're spreading a false narrative that you gave to them, and they end up screwing themselves, right? What critical mission did Sessions publicly announce regarding leaks? Well, he announced that they were investigating into them. 27 investigations at the time. That was back in November, right? They basically said, if you leak, we're going to find you.
We gonna find you.
That's right. We're going to find you. Why did Sessions make this public? Because he wanted to let them know. But he also wanted to let them know that they were onto it so that they'd be a little bit more careful in picking and choosing their intel sources. But he also wanted to let people know that there was an investigation now going into them. Optics are very important. Control of the narrative. Truth and transparency is the only way forward. Regarding Mueller, deleted critical text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Well, those are critical. They show a lot of things, right? Remember, Peter Strzok was the one that interviewed Michael Flynn, and of course, he was friends with Rudolph Contreras, who was the judge that accepted the Flynn plea deal and later was recused. Now, I want to correct myself real quick. In my last video, I said he recused himself, but somebody else recused him. Who was it? Reread regarding Mueller designed to, and that's what we were just talking about up top. Mueller was designed to be a roadblock in all this, right? The Mueller insurance policy has expired. Q.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Next posty post, 26:44, 45 minutes after the hour of 12. We can take it back to January 7th of last year. Q was talking about all these different foreign aid groups, agreements, and things like this. Foundations, essentially. U.S. taxpayers are paying for it all. Paris Accord equals scam, trillions. Yeah, and it's not just U.S. taxpayers. This is taxpayers from around the world are putting into this. Anybody involved in the Paris Accord, and that's a ton of nations, right? So they get you on this good, what seems to be kind of an innocuous good idea, right? We're going to all reduce emissions. Well, everyone can kind of agree on that, but after that, it starts to get a little sketchy, right? And of course, they start enriching their own green companies by lining their pockets by saying, we're going to help reduce emissions. Just invest in this. Now, people are getting taken for trillions of dollars through this Paris Accord. They're not fighting climate change. They're just taking in your money and reinvesting it into something else. Red Cross, another perfect example of a quote-unquote humanitarian group going around the world offering their help. Now, outwardly, you're going to see that they build a hospital here, they build a school here, they fix this, they give out their medicine here and there, They're doing all these wonderful things around the world. Meanwhile, they're taking in bazillions of your dollars and doing about a quarter, if that, of any of this work. And of course, Red Cross is probably even worse than a quarter of that. They really are doing very, very little aid compared to the bazillions of dollars that they're taking in. Foreign aid groups, all these kinds of groups. That's why the Clinton Foundation was such a big deal, because it was a foundation, right? And war is essentially the same kind of scam. They can kind of pump up this group over here. They're the terrorists of the week. We got to go over there and we got to stop them. Okay, we got to get all of our military industrial complex companies over there to make money over there. We've got to stop this immediate threat. We're going to go spread democracy, right? So this comes in so many different ways, but basically what it does is it puts taxpayers on the hook around the world for trillions and trillions of dollars. And as soon as you don't believe, or you start to see that their foreign aid or their humanitarian group or whatever, you start to see that it's a scam, they just start another foundation and get you believing in that so that you'll donate to that. It's the same racket. Who audits where the money actually goes? Well, that's a good question, right? Looks like nobody. Otherwise, we would have known this. Who actually receives the money? Well, that depends. If this week it's ISIS, then it's ISIS. If this week it's Antifa, then it's Antifa, right? You get how it works. The U.S. taxpayer is funding the very people we are engaged in taking down. Yeah, precisely. Slush funds everywhere. And that's where it gets so ridiculous, because it gets really, really hard to trace this. There are so many slush funds. Just about every politician that you know has some sort of foundation, right? And of course, then that gets separated into other micro foundations and things like this. It gets very, very hard to trace. Think George Soros pays for Antifa out of his own pocket? No, he pays for it out of yours. That's how all this gets started. He's the one that's always promoting the sort of theme of the week, right? This is going to be the big pink theme. We're going to save the world, and we're all going to wear pink ribbons, or we're all going to wear yellow ribbons or blue ribbons, or whatever it's going to be. Whatever flavor of the week it is, George Soros is all about it. The hole is deep. You feel sick yet? Then we get this Twitter link right here to President Donald Trump, who says, the Democrats want billions of dollars for foreign aid, but they don't want to spend a small fraction of that number on properly securing our border. Figure that one out. This was posted on the 5th of January. Well, we see the ridiculous nature of this. I'm sure that most of you who are following my channel or other channels like it, this is very simple, cut and dry for us. But I think that this is starting to come out into the public narrative a lot more, especially with this shutdown looming. We've got this shutdown going on. A lot more people are paying attention to what's really going on here. And of course, the thing about POTUS is that he hasn't wavered. So whether you agree with the stance or not, you can't really get him on anything else because he hasn't wavered. He's saying that simple enough. This wall is what I want. It's what I promise. It's what we're going to get. I'm not budging until I get it. And you may not like it, but you at least have to respect that. I think he's winning a lot of people over in the court of public opinion. Now, you wouldn't know that if, of course, you were paying attention to the mainstream media. But then again, I suppose if you're on this channel, you're probably not. Q says 2 days ahead of schedule. And I'm assuming that we are talking about the reference here to January 7th of last year, and it's January 5th. President Trump's tweet was from January 5th, so 2 more days would make it 1 year from this post. Let's go ahead and move on to the next post for now. 26:45, 21 minutes after the hour, 1 p.m., we get this graphic right here, and we've seen ones like this before, pitting the 1933 anti-fascist East movement against the 2017 anti-fascist movement. Of course, these are completely separate movements, obviously. This one's red, this one's black and red. And this one says anti-fascist. And this one says anti-fascist. And that's a shorter word, which makes it completely different. And this says action with a K because it's Germany. And this says action with a C because it's the USA. And at this time, I always like to interject with my own little public service announcement. When you are eating seafood, always select crab with a C. Okay? Never crab with a K. Crab with a K is not crab. That's not crab. Don't eat that. That's not crab. Don't put that down. All right? Well, look, back in 1933, it looks like they were a little bit more orderly. Over here, what are we on? Crenshaw Boulevard? What's going on here? Looks like a violent street gang. But they also get $86 in a box lunch from George Soros. So you're like a violent street gang with a sponsor. All right, let's go over here to this Twitter link right here from Rupley. And as you can see, looks like Yellow Vest out there in France playing punch face. And I just want to pause it right here. Homegirl's getting out of the picture. She's like, yeah, I thought this was going to look good on Instagram, but these guys are serious. So let's check it out. Okay, well, that's all I'm going to play of that. I hate seeing violence, and of course, nobody wants to see this in their own country. It's definitely boiling over there in Paris. This Yellow Vest movement has been working itself up for quite some time. It's definitely boiling over really all throughout Europe, and you hate to see it on the police side, too, because a lot of these guys probably are agreeing with the protesters, so it must be a really, really difficult position for them to be in, and we really need to keep shining the light on Paris because this thing, as it grows and grows and grows, eventually it has to boil over at some point. Meanwhile, Macron out there is about as popular as peanut butter and jelly in the same jar. Yep, think about that for a minute. Seems convenient, right? Seems handy. Then you get it home, you look down, and you're like, no, this was not a good idea at all. This was a very, very bad idea. What if I only want peanut butter? What if I only want jelly? Look, I don't need to explain the problematic nature of this situation here, but the point is that Macron is not popular, and neither was peanut butter and jelly in a jar. Complete blackout by the fake news media? You bet. Ask yourself why. Because they don't want to show that socialism is about as popular as Macron. And Macron is about as popular. You do the rest, but you get the idea, right? They don't want to show that socialism is not sweeping the nation like the sensation they thought it was. Are they afraid of U.S. patriots engaging in the same tactics? You bet they are. Now, up until now, it's been mostly spilling into the streets in Europe, a little bit in the United States, but nowhere near like it has been in Europe. And to even be fair, even though France is not getting a lot of coverage of this, not like they deserve, think about Armenia, think about Iran. These guys have been protesting for months and nobody's covering this other than some random citizen journalists out there in Iran. It's even worse out there. This is worldwide. Socialism is failing. People are realizing it. And the more that this gets coverage, the more that it's going to end up going back to the source, which is socialism sucks, right? People are tired of this. They're tired of open borders. They're tired of not being able to keep their own money. They're tired of not being able to keep their own autonomy, their own culture. And of course, once the U.S. patriots get involved, it's all over because they know there's one thing that U.S. patriots do, and that's get stuff done. Now, like I said, up until now, it's still been mostly this war has been waged on the battlefield of the internet. We're kind of the relay station for the rest of the world. Channels like this one and others like it, getting messages out here from Q. And of course, all of you who are out there on 8chan doing your digging or wherever you're digging from, whether it's QAnon or something else, this is what they're afraid of. And that's precisely why they fund groups like this Antifa or whatnot to go out in the streets and sort of counter the protesters, the true protesters who are actually protesting for some real change. They send these knuckleheads from Antifa out there to just kind of confuse the narrative, call you a racist, call you a bigot, call you whatever flavor it is of the week, right? They're just out there to start trouble. And of course, it's just a bunch of virtue signaling. I would even venture to call it virtue signal extremism, if you will, right? These guys don't have any politics to share. They don't want to get down with some politics with you. They're not interested in debating. You think Spider-Man face here wants to talk about FISA abuse? No, of course not. He wants to get hopped up on a bottle of Boone's Farm and a couple of Quaaludes and go running around with his Call of Duty clan, right? Did the liberal left old guard engage and form organizations such as Antifa to combat and silence fascism? Well, outwardly that's what they're saying, right? But no, of course, they're the actual fascists, right? You think these guys are promoting democracy around the world? Really? Any such deviation of the controlled narrative? Do the actions of those patriots abroad destroy the fake news narrative regarding majority agree with the policies of the liberal left? Well, I think a lot of you might have disagreed a year ago, but I think seeing what we've seen this year, we're starting to see how popular this movement really is becoming. And this isn't just about QAnon. This is a movement, a flat out freedom movement, right? What we're seeing is the fall of globalism. And globalism was for so many years had sort of Soros kind of as their face to it, but it was many, many people, right? But of course, we sort of always attach that with Soros when we know that this really comes down to tons and tons of different things. But the fact of the matter is that they were going for global government, and this was their final push. And now that this has been exposed, they've sort of had to push further because they were so close. They can't back up at this point. And now that we're seeing patriots in whether it be Paris, whether it be the United States, whether it be Germany, the Netherlands, Iran, you name it, that completely kills the narrative. It shows exactly how many of us there are out there. It doesn't matter that you own all the news stations. We're the ones that make the news. So it will never matter if you've got yourself a couple of reporters and a couple of cameras. That does not make you a truth maker. We will not go silent into the night. We will not go without a fight. Do you believe this movement and worldwide events are simply a coincidence? Of course not. This has all been a long time coming, really. Let's face it. This has been boiling over for a long, long time. And I think we all have our own stories as to sort of when we got fed up, right? Simply a coincidence? I doubt it. Divided, you were weak. Together, you were strong. We the people have the power. EO active. Where we go one, we go all. Q is reminding us that with the turn of the year, the 2018 amendments to U.S. courts martial will be kicking in. That's the EO that Q is referring to. I think we all would like to get some more information regarding that. We'll talk about that in possibly another video or later on in this video. Let's move on for now to 2646. 53 minutes after the hour 1 p.m. We get a little collage here. And this first one is Donald Trump before he was president, of course, back in the day, with the Reverends Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, a couple of prominent black rights leaders. How about that? They look fairly chummy. As a matter of fact, they even look rather affectionate, I would say. In picture 2 over here, we've got Donald Trump, again, wearing the power colors there. And he's talking to Jesse Jackson. There's Al Sharpton again. There's the hardest working man in show business. That's right, James Brown. And James Brown's looking at Trump like, "Hey, Donald Trump, gotta get on up with the get down." And Al Sharpton's like, I don't know what he's talking about either, but he's got good blow. And down here, we got Don King and his completely not flame retardant hair. And Donald Trump's pointing up in the air, and Jesse Jackson's looking there, and he's like, "See, there's Democrats up there. You see those guys? They're going to turn on me in about 30 years. You just watch. Trust me, I'm Donald Trump, and I've got a time machine." And the guy back here is like, "Yep, I know, because I had the keys to the time machine." I'm just kidding. Q says, "Do you notice any similarities? D's attempt to turn the public against our police, ICE, and those who continually serve the public interest, protect open borders with no immigration and customs officials to safeguard the people. EU government attempt to turn the police against the people regarding the yellow vest protest. Police versus people, EU. D's attempt to sway public versus police, ICE, US, a war against globalism." That's essentially what this is, right? And the media is trying to turn this into, a mass vilification of all our institutions, our police, our firefighters, the people that protect us at the border. And essentially what this is for us is a war against globalism, something that's been a long time coming. They've been trying to get this new world order for decades upon decades. And now that people are waking up and we don't have to rely on mainstream media to get our news, it comes down pretty quickly. And we start to see this in the EU, right? And of course, all they want to do now to protect their own ass is to basically muddy the waters and turn this into a massive violent protest. That way everyone seems like they're in the wrong, right? A war to retain sovereignty. Yeah, look, we're always going to have to keep an eye on our government. We're not out of the weeds. Even if we win this war, we're not out of the weeds. We're always going to have to watch out for Big Brother. We're always going to have to keep an eye out on our big institutions. But the fact of the matter remains, if we don't have sovereignty, we don't have a fighting chance at all. At least with sovereignty, we've got some sort of chance, right? Divide those who police and safeguard against the people who they are sworn to protect. Chaos. And that's what they want, chaos. Make the people fight themselves versus original targets, old guard. And that's exactly what the old guard was all about, right? Sending the poor to war. Fake news, push of racism, fascism, sexism, every other ism, etc. against those seeking to end globalism in favor of nationalism, pride of heritage and culture. Yeah, it's not racism at all. We're cool with immigrants. We're cool with legal immigration. The fact of the matter is that without nationalism, we don't have true diversity. Africa's Africa because it's African. Americans are American because they're American, right? And we all have the ability and the right to be proud of our heritage and our culture. And that's how we preserve it. Yes, we can mix and we can mingle. But the fact is when you do it on a mass scale like that, we all become the same. We all become dumbed down. And let's face it, history has shown some people just don't get along. Some people are oil and water, right? Designed to keep you submissive. Why do Democrats deploy and use racism as their go-to tactic? Because policy isn't their go-to tactic. Healthcare is not their go-to tactic. Immigration is not their go-to tactic. Finance, not their go-to tactic. Racism, go-to tactic. When an argument or narrative cannot factually be substantiated. And I think you've all experienced this over the last few years, right? Trying to argue to your knucklehead friends that just don't get it. And they can call you whatever they want, but the fact is, you're right. POTUS and black community pre-candidacy, POTUS and black community post-candidacy. Well, it depends on what you refer to as the black community. Let the black community speak for themselves, right? Looks to me like he's fairly popular. But then again, don't ask me. Reconcile. They want you divided. Controlled, submissive sheep. Posse Comitatus Act. Well, Q has referenced the Posse Comitatus Act before. We saw this back in November 7th, post 2460, where you can see there the Wikipedia link to martial law and the Posse Comitatus Act. And this is essentially an act that sort of puts some reins on the federal government in regards to law enforcement. Now, that's to make sure that they can't just sort of globally round us all up, right? Well, Q is turning us onto this part right here, or in response to chaos associated with protests and mob action. Article 1, Section 9 of the U.S. Constitution states, the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion the public safety may require it. Yeah, so look, groups like the National Guard, the Coast Guard, I imagine they would be exempt dealing with maritime law. Now, none of this excites me. Of course, martial law is nothing to get excited about. Q has turned us on to this quite a few times. I think they're getting us ready for the idea that this very possibly could come. I'm definitely not thrilled. I would love to see us win this war without having to pull it. But in case it happens, it is important to know what's going on. So it looks to me like Q is stating that indeed the National Guard could get involved if we end up seeing this mass rebellion going on. Now, hopefully it won't turn out like it's been turning out in France. I would love to see it go a little bit more swift and peacefully. And this is always kind of muddy water for me too. I'm not a big fan of martial law. I would love to see this all go down without it. But if indeed that is the case, hopefully it is swift, quick, we get some justice and get right back to regular business. Let's move on for now. Okay, well, it looks like Q is alluding to the fact that in the event of some sort of national emergency, and let me just pick a random event off the top of my head. How about a migrant caravan, or as I like to call a caravasion, from some random country? Let me just pick another one off the top of my head here. How about Honduras? Okay, coming up from down south. Bunch of knuckleheads coming over here for work and for a better iPhone. And that would cause a national security emergency, wouldn't it? And I think that is what Q is alluding to, the fact that, look, this is definitely a matter of national security to the highest degree. And we learned that back on 9/11. And this has to be dealt with. And President Trump has made it very clear also that this is a national security issue. He's not budging. And if he has to invoke national security to a national emergency level, he will do so. And because I'm 4 years old, we're going to just listen to him say that again.
Considered using emergency powers to grant yourself authorities to build this wall without congressional approval? And second,
Yes,
on
I have.
Mexico, you have.
Yes, I have. And I can do it if I want.
X gon' give it to you. Wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you. Knock, knock, open up.
All right, 26:47, 19 minutes after the hour of 6 p.m. We have this image here entitled 2616. And look at that. We got ourselves a nice little watch, and that looks like our EO pen there with something under it. What's under there? Q says, will POTUS be at CD being Camp David tomorrow? 1 year Delta, meaning a year later. Matters of national security. The clock is ticking. Follow the watch. Q. Well, in order to do that, we got to go a year back because we're a year Delta, right? Which means we got to go a year back. Flashback aside.
Gotta flashback aside. Yeah, take you back. Yeah.
Taking you all the way back to a year ago today, January 6th, it would be this post 481. Now, this first graphic is in regards to Q proof. We're not going to actually take a look at that. We're going to look at this picture right here. We see this pen. Yeah, there's the EO pen. Q says, look familiar. Note the desk. Where is everyone this weekend? Well, at the time, everyone was at Camp David. Q says, God bless. And that indeed looks like from the desk of Camp David. It most certainly does not look like the desk from the Oval Office. But we saw this would be almost exactly. It looked like the post was from January 5th this year. The post last year was from January 6th, post 481. So, do we have an EO coming up? Is this going to be some sort of amendment or change to this policy called Matatus Act? And we see over here that POTUS did indeed land at Camp David at 9:35 a.m. yesterday. And all we really know is that he was going to discuss matters of national security. Now let's take a look at that watch we saw. Thanks to Anon who made this graphic, we are looking at an IWC Portugueser chronograph classic, with its calf skin interior and its alligator exterior. Ooh, sounds fancy. And it says here that the calendar is set to the 5th. It does look like that. The chronograph second hand set to 0. Chronograph minute and hour hand also set to 0. And over here, you see on the red lines, the watch, hour, and minute hand. It seems to be showing 3:14. There are some people that think it is 3:15. It looks like it's just shy of 3:15. And the watch second hand is pointing to the 40-second mark. Anon on 8chan points out that we also see this same time on Justice Kavanaugh's watch in this picture during his hearing. Well, it got me wondering whether Q was referencing either post 314 or 315. 314 says, "Be the autist we know you are. It's about the break. Godspeed, Patriots." And 315 from December 9th, 48 minutes after the hour of 1, was adding on to this. What has been said about the U.S. military? The speech yesterday verified and unlocked so much. Expand your thinking. Reread crumbs. Re-listen to yesterday's speech. Connect the markers. News in all forms unlocks the map. Expand your thinking. The Great Awakening Q, and then Q added on here. Timestamp U.S. military against POTUS recent tweet. U.S. military. How many clues must we provide as the world turns? Okay, well, I'd like to give a little bit more thought to some of these numbers here. It does still look to me like this might be set to 314. 3 plus 14 would be... exactly. Now, if they're at Camp David, they meet in the Laurel Room, and I believe this is Laurel Wood underneath on this desk here. This is where they actually meet. They meet in the, it's called the Laurel Lodge over there at Camp David. So that's what I know so far, but it may be a sign that we are going to need to be looking out for this watch in the future. Who do you think this watch belongs to? I don't believe it's President Trump's watch. Could be someone else's, but we might need to follow the watch. I also want to point out real quick that the POTUS schedule's previous post said Saturday, 5th of January 2019, 15:15 or 3:15. No POTUS public events or travel outside the White House. Secure area is expected for the remainder of today and tonight. Now, one more quick thought in regards to this pen and this watch. Q keeps reminding us to think about the military. In military time, 3:15 would be 15:15, right? So I went back to post 15:15 from June 16th. These reporters and networks have been named in the Wikileaks to have colluded with the DNC or Hillary campaign during the 2016 election cycle. And this shows how it all went, from reporters to different special agents from the FBI or CIA or whatnot. And of course, it names tons and tons of reporters. And one in particular that I would like to turn your attention to is down here for the New York Times, one Miss Maggie Haberman, and I might be onto something in the next post. Post 2648, 9 minutes after the hour of 7 p.m. We get taken back to December 11th. This post 2579. Border security equals national security. Fiscal year 2019 defense spending bill. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what I've been saying for months here. This is where we are getting our money for the wall. This is the budget overview, budget reconciliation. What if the House fails prior to majority change? What vested authority does the Constitution grant a sitting president regarding matters of national security? We just talked about that. He can declare a national emergency, right? Thank you, Mr. Soros, for the globalism. And then we get taken to this Twitter link right here from guess who? Maggie Haberman. More on what Costa Reports is hearing. Trump has been talking about it for several days, and White House counsel's office has taken a look at what is possible since the shutdown began, and Trump revived talk of this inside the White House. And this is in regards to this Robert Costa tweet that says, Trump confidant tells me he's still talking today about declaring a national emergency if talks collapse. And he's getting encouraged by several of his friends on hard right to do just that, knowing it'd be challenged immediately. Okay, so they're all of a sudden banging the war drums in regards to this. And here's our girl, Maggie Haberman, popping off her mouth. We were just talking about her. Several days. What if this was always the plan? Justice Kavanaugh. Timing is everything. Interesting. Justice Kavanaugh had the same time on his watch also. Why deploy vested powers of the office of the president under verifiable matters of national security when you can just instead unveil America's true enemy? Does that mean D-class?
Do it!
No, public awakening. And then we get this WikiLeaks link here. We've talked about this at great length. This is an email from from Jay Benenson. And this was to the Admiral Robbie Mook, who was Clinton's campaign manager, Cheryl Mills. Looks like Huma Abedin and I believe Podesta was tagged in this too. But this is in regards to Maggie Haberman and how she's kind of a deep state sport. And here's the quote from the email. We have had a very good relationship with Maggie Haberman of Politico over the last year. We have had her tee up stories for us before and have never been disappointed. While we should have a larger conversation in the near future about a broader strategy for re-engaging the beat press that covers HRC, for this, we think we can achieve our objective and do the most shaping by going to Maggie. You are not safe. I wonder if that is purposeful, saying that it is no longer. And the clock is ticking for Maggie Haberman. And we've talked about her before. New York Times, deep state knucklehead. She was the one. She was their pinch hitter whenever they needed her to knock one out of the park and really beat a narrative to death. They went to Maggie. Well, it looks like Maggie's turn is next. Could the clock be ticking? Could all this timing be in relations to not just Maggie, but all these related reporters? I don't know, but it looks like the connections are rather odd. Let's move on for now. Post 2649, 50 minutes after the hour of 7 p.m. Q takes us back to December 11th. This post right here in regards to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, probably the people that are going to be building our wall. And this was Red Castle, Green Castle. We were talking about this a while back, remember? And here Q is confirming here. So for those who are still sending new evidence of Red Castle and Green Castle, this has long been confirmed. The Red Castle is referring to our U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in Green Castle, Indiana. And here was your answer right here. It's answered right in the first quote. You didn't think the largest military spending bill in history wasn't going to indirectly include funding for the wall, did you? That was the plan all along. Here it says this was planned and forecasted as the border funding solution from the beginning. And that's why I've been banging the drum so solidly, because we've been paying attention to this. We knew all along this is where the money was going to come from. The omnibus was just more backup for that. Trump's been trolling them all along. That's why he can casually fold his arms and go ahead and shut this thing down, because he knows that the longer this goes on, this really is going to make the Dems struggle. This is looking bad for them, not President Trump, because we're all backing him. We all have known this. And the reason why this has been going on a while, Q kind of answers here. Anon's had the proof long ago, but shining a light back then would have defeated the primary purpose of showing the public the real objective of Democrats, party of open borders, da-da-da-la. Okay, exactly. And I said that long ago too. This is going to be a long, long journey for a lot of us because we've known this. So it's been frustrating because we just want to see it happen. But the fact of the matter is we've had to take that knowledge and teach more Anons. That's why this whole QAnon movement has grown so much. We've needed to become experts in this. We've needed to become experts in FISA so that we could share it with other people. By the time this finally boils over, everybody knows what's up. That's the systematic destruction of the Democratic Party, not just rushing in and arresting and making everybody angry. I hear every day, well, until we see any arrests, wake me up. Like you're entitled to an arrest. You're not entitled to an arrest. This is our country. And the fact of the matter is that we need to do this the right way because they're lawyers too. We rush in and arrest everybody. They're going to get out just as soon as they got in. It doesn't work that way. And that's why we've needed to get this into the public knowledge. And that's why it's taken so long. Not fun, but this is the way it's needed to go. How do you outmaneuver the obstructionists? Well, I guess if you're going according to Sun Tzu, you send everybody that way. You assume that this is where you want. If you know they're going to bring out roadblocks, give them something to block and then go someplace else. Send a whole bunch of forces someplace and let them go try and be the roadblock over there. Meanwhile, you're walking the other way. Makes sense? How do you expose their obstructionists for what they really are? Enemy of the people. Well, you shut the government down. You shut it down. In the very beginning, right when they take over the house, you just shut it down. And now we see what they're really about. What are they really willing to come to the table about? Do they really want to get the government going? And if so, what are they willing to give up to do it? Again, so give them something that you know they're going to value and that they know they're going to go after. They are only now figuring it out. Q. Let's move on to the next post, 2650. 6 minutes after the hour of 8, we get this from an Anon. First 24 hours of Dems in power. Filed articles to impeachment Trump. Introduced a bill to kill the Electoral College, passed bill to fund government without the border wall, voted unanimously to go home just 4 hours after taking the job. Who's worried for our country? I'm sure it'll get better, right? After all, they always say it's the first 4 days that are always the hardest, right? Everyone's trying to figure out where homeroom is, what their locker combination is, right? Well, check this out off of Breitbart. Democrat spending bill offers $12 billion more for foreign aid, $0 for border wall. I don't think that's going to go well. This guy says this one was really a step on their own. You know what? Q responds, why do Democrats always force Republicans to include spending bills for approval, billions of dollars for foreign aid? Well, that answers the question right there on how these politicians get so rich, right? And that's the next question. How do politicians become extremely wealthy while in office on government salaries? They set up these organizations. We talked about it at pretty good length at the beginning of this video. How do XYZ organizations, etc., remain funded? And then we're just going to show you this one link real quick here. As you can see, this is a map of foreign assistance worldwide, up to $28 billion. My goodness, look at all that. All this money going everywhere else on the planet except to help our own people. Well, where's that money going? Right back in their pockets, right? And that's why every time they want to push something through, they always add this kind of fat on top of it so that they can get it kicked back to them. Why do Democrats only care about control and power? Because that's the only thing that really matters. They can run and do whatever they like. That was the whole point. Everybody was in on the same game. And as long as they got paid off, they had nothing to say about the worst stuff that was going on at the top. Power equals protection. Power of the purse, excuse me. Power equals protection. The wheel of corruption. Welcome to the con Q. Let's move on to the next post. 2651. We get this link again. Why for decades has the UN encouraged donor countries to contribute 0.7% of their gross domestic product, GDP, on foreign aid? Well, for the very same reason. It kept all this good old boy network rich. And as long as they were all rich, everybody stayed quiet, right? The corruption, infiltration at the top worldwide has spread like cancer. And then we get this video here. Q says, listen again carefully, the Great Awakening. And I think you know where this is taking us right here. I'm not going to play it for you. I do suggest that you watch it every time it comes up, but it does take a lot of time and I get hit with copyright, and this video is already getting a little bit long, but this is entitled, This Video Will Get Donald Trump Elected. If you haven't checked it out, please check it out. There's always something new to grab from it. Q says, listen again carefully, the Great Awakening. Q. Let's move on to the last post, 2652, 29 minutes after the hour of 8, responding to an Anon who's talking about 8chan8. Q couldn't get the page to load. Q says 2.2 million attempted access within 1 to 2 minutes. Site crashed. Q. Well, that sounds like the world is paying attention. It sounds like people are in a big panic. Those are your Q posts for today. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. If you're new to my channel, please understand that you will from time to time be unclicked, unliked, and unsubscribed. Please listen to what I said at the beginning of the video. If you have not joined one of my other sites, please follow me over there. You never know what could be happening later on this month, and I want to make sure that we can all stay in contact. Thanks for hanging with me. I know this was a bit of a long video, but I want to get this out to you now while you guys can still have your coffee with me. All right, this is Sir Patrick Mac. All my links are down below. My Gab, my BitChute, my Real.video, which is now Brighteon.com. I'm over at Twitter at IPOT1776. That's at IPOT1776. My email is down below, and if you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon link is down below. All those links, as well as all the links that I use in my videos, are always down below in the video description. So please check there before you ask me about the links. They are always down below. Okay, this is Sir Patrick Mac, and until next time, stay safe.